This is feet up on a rolled blanket. Great for the feet, knees, hips, back. Take your yoga blanket and start, if your blanket has fringe, start from the end that does not have fringe. And roll it up just halfway, not the full way. Then I'd like you to place the first third of your foot up on the rolled blanket. I'm going to make that a little less. It looks like this, feet parallel. Bend your knees, hands on your knees. This is downhill skier pose with feet up on a rolled blanket. Here's deeper, forearms to the thighs. This is great for the feet, arches, and really the foundation for a lot of the back work that we do. Hold for 5 to 10 breaths and just enjoy. To come out of this pose, you'll step off the blanket, bring your hands to your hips, thighs go back, lift your belly, and stand straight up. This is shins in, thighs apart with a block, and place it right between the shins and the fleshiest part of the calves. Bending the knees, place the hands on the knees. This pose is often called downhill skier pose. If you can imagine, skier. In this variation, we have our hands on the knees. Notice my arms are straight, and I'm lifting my sitting bones. Spread your 4th and 5th toes. So you have to imagine these toes going back towards the outer heels. Notice they don't move a lot, but I'm doing the action as if I could take them back to the outer heels. There won't be a lot of movement, but you'll feel more pressure on the block. These 4th and 5th toes control some muscles when they spread that help you squeeze the shin bones towards the midline. Really good for knee health, ankle health, and getting up into the hips. The second part is to cross your wrist right in front of each other and place them on your upper inner thighs. The hand placement is important. Have your thumbs on top and your fingers inside. And then you roll your thighs in towards the midline and push them apart. When you do this, you'll feel some space, perhaps at the sitting bones and even up into the sacrum. So I'm spreading my toes, shins in, and pushing my thighs apart. This is great for knee health and getting up into the hips and low back. You'll start to feel the spaciousness here. And keeping toes spread and pushing your thighs apart, straighten your legs. You'll find new freedom in your forward bend this way. To come up out of the pose, hands to hips, take your tailbone and pelvic bones down and lift your belly up so that the pelvis is the fulcrum. I'll show the coming up again. 4th and 5th toes spread, and I'm pushing my thighs apart. Hands to hips, straighten your legs. Check this out. Pelvic bones down, belly lifts, pelvis is the fulcrum. This is shins forward, thighs back. Really important and great for knee health, hip health, and low back. The tendency is to lock our knees back in space. Not good for the low back over time or the knees or hips. And this is to help with the proper alignment in the legs. I'd like you to start with knees bent and come to this downhill skier pose. Place your hands on your calves, and you're going to lift the calves up and press them into the shin bones. So you're literally taking your shins forward in space or resisting them forward. And then against that forward action, take your thighs back to straighten your legs. Taking care not to lock back. So this would be locked back knee. This is shins forward. To straighten your legs, you'll find you have to lift your sitting bones up, and you'll get the proper stretch in the belly of the hamstring. So we're avoiding this locking back. This is no. Bending the knees, engaging the calves, and then lifting the sitting bones to stretch the backs of your legs. Hands to your hips, shoulders back, lift the belly and stand straight up. This is Pez Dispenser Pose. You'll need your yoga block, and you take the block and put it up high in the middle of your thighs. Feels a little bit awkward in the beginning. Great educational pose. I'm placing the block more forward than back, feet parallel. So recall how we take our shins forward. I'm going to lift the calf muscle up as if I'm lifting my heels up to make the calves strong. Then Pez Dispenser Pose, you'll squeeze the block. Even though there's pressure on the block, I want you to squeeze your legs to the midline. And then start to roll the thighs towards the middle and shoot the block back like you're delivering a Pez. This lines your legs up, the greater trochanter with the ankle bone. And it'll create some lumbar curve here to balance that out. This is stage one. You've got to get the thighs back. Then it's tailbone down, lift the belly. You'll feel great length in the low back, length down through the legs, and lift up in your heart. This pose is great for aligning the thighs with the pelvis and supporting the low back. Pez Dispenser. This pose is great for the hips and supporting the back and getting up further into the spine as well. Start facing a wall and have your hands about shoulder height. Take your fingertips to the wall. So we're working fingertips and not flat hands, fingertips. And step away. As you step away, you'll fold in half right at the hips. Bend the knees and lift the sitting bones. So I'm lifting from here, the base of the pelvis, knees bent. The arm bones also lift up and the belly comes back. Keeping this spine, slowly straighten your legs and breathe. You'll hold 3 to 5 to 7 breaths. I'd like to show you what not to do. In this pose, if you straighten the legs and the pelvis tucks underneath, step forward and come out of the pose and we'll adjust. If you're back rounded in that pose, I'd like you to start with your hands up higher. This pose we call shower pose. So imagine being in a shower, stepping back, and the shower just coming over your back. And from here, same actions. Bend the knees, lift the sitting bones. Belly back, straighten your legs, and enjoy the length in the spine in this position. With a little bit more mobility, step back. This pose we call table pose. Here it is again, knees bent, lift the sitting bones. The idea is to get a natural curve in your low back, support it with the belly without rounding, and then lengthen the spine and by extending your legs. To come out of the pose, you'll step forward and stand up. This is a quad stretch. You'll stand with your side to the wall, hand on the wall. We're taking balance out of it by having your hand on the wall. Bend your leg, it's the leg that's away from the wall, and take the ankle to top of foot. It's important here to line up your bent knee with your straight leg so it's not forward of it and it's not winged out. Here I squeeze my legs to the midline, take my tailbone down and lift the belly, and then draw the foot towards the outside of the hip. You'll hold 3 to 5 to 7 breaths. This is a deeper quad stretch. It requires a little bit more mobility in the low back. So if this one causes any discomfort, do the standing one. In this pose, you want to make sure you're on the tops of your thighs. So I'm rolling them in and feet are straight back. Tailbone towards the floor lengthens the low back and lifts the belly. Important stability piece. Roll to your side. Check this out. I open my palm up and take the big toe side of the foot. So I'm not rolling the shoulder in for the quad stretch. I'm opening it out like you're holding something in your hand. Then from here, I place the hip on the floor. This is an important point here. Bring your hand over your foot and bend your elbow so your shoulder is supported. Then place the hip fully. The quad stretch comes first from tailbone down, lift the belly, and then take the foot towards the side of the hip. You'll hold 3 to 5 to 7 breaths. Release and do the second side. This is Inchworm Pose. It's a great pose for learning how to work with the tailbone and moving it. We don't have a lot in any of our physical activities where we actually work with the tailbone. So it takes some time to develop the awareness and get this movement. And this pose really isolates it for us. The tailbone is at the base of the spine, and it's moved with the pelvic floor muscles. These can be very weak muscles, and this pose will help you find them and use them. You start on your stomach with knees bent and feet flexed. Your forehead is on your hands in this position. But for this pose, I'm going to lift my head up so that you can hear well. Number 1 is press the knees down and lift the sitting bones up. Now I want you to watch my low back. I'm taking my tailbone towards the floor. Just visualize it, imagine it, and it will happen. Tailbone goes down and my low back gets longer. And then I take my pelvic bones down and lengthen and look up. Think inchworm. Knees press down, lift the sitting bones, stage 1. Now, this is the tailbone action. What not to do is you do not want to create buns of steel and really hug and take yourself down. Instead, knees press down, sitting bones lift. Then pelvic floor muscles, just visualize taking the tailbone towards the floor and lift your low belly. This will be the action. If you feel your low belly tone, you're doing it. My buttock muscles are toned, but they're not gripped like buns of steel. Stage 3 is pelvic bones down, lengthen through your torso and look up. Here's the 3 actions again. Number 1, knees press down, lift the sitting bones. Number 2, take the tailbone down and lift the low belly. The low back lengthens and strengthens. Number 3, pelvic bones to the floor, lengthen through your torso and look up. This is extended leg pose. Start with knees bent, feet on the floor. Bring your leg towards you and hold on to the back of the thigh. The hands are in the middle of the hamstring versus up in the knee joint. Right in the middle, flex your foot. Now, the tendency in this pose is to bring the leg as close to you as you can, and we are not going to do this. Instead, push your leg away from you and press the thigh into your hand. This up leg is really an instrument for working the bottom leg. Think of it that way. So I'm pressing thigh into hand, and with that pressure, placing the leg on the floor. My low back is not flat into the floor, so I'm not doing this pose. This is no. I hope you can see this doesn't look too comfortable. And then I want you to press your thigh into your hand, move it away. You'll get a little arch in your low back. And I'm using this pressure of the up leg to ground the bottom leg down. So in this pose, it's really about the bottom leg and keeping it grounded. From here, straighten your leg. The actions are the same in both legs. The bottom leg presses into the floor. The top thigh presses into your hand, both grounding. Keeping the bottom leg grounded, do go as close to your torso as you can, and you'll get a stretch in your hamstring. You're welcome to bring your hands up your leg, even go to your foot. But if the bottom leg pops up, that's no. You've lost the value of the pose. Come back. Press, get the bottom leg, and then stretch. The principle we're working with in all our poses is to create tone. This is tone in the back when I press and ground the leg, and then I lengthen the curve of the spine. Big stretch in the hamstrings, also great for the low back. Then releasing the arms, extend out through the leg, and keep it straight as you lower it all the ways to the floor. And when you touch, enjoy the letting go. You'll repeat second side. Hold the pose 3 to 5 to 7 breaths. Here's how to get into Shavasana so you have a really restful pose for the end of your practice. Lie back, legs together, feet flexed, robot arms. So we start out a bit active. Then pressing your elbows down into the floor, you'll activate the upper back muscles. Use them to lift your torso up and get your shoulder blades underneath you. And then lower your torso back down. Arms come to A shape. Allow your legs to relax, your upper back to relax. And open your legs almost as wide as the mat. Use your first few exhalations to suggest for the body to become really heavy into the floor, a letting go for deeper relaxation.